Yo, what's up, everybody? This is Epi coming at you with epiCHATS 11. We are cracking the numbers. We're doing pretty well, and for the 11th chat, we have someone very special. I've been actually looking forward to this for a long time. Been trying to get this interview done for probably 2 years. He probably doesn't remember. It is coL.melonzz Friedman. Kyle, thanks so much for taking the time. How are you, good sir?
I'm pretty good, man. No complaints. I didn't know you'd been waiting for that long, dude. You should have DM'd me or something.
Yeah, I mean,
Goes down. Yeah.
it's hard stuff. I learned that now. I mean, we got it done now, and it's an interesting time to get the opportunity. So I'm happy about it. And I did have a bunch of stuff I do have a lot of stuff that I want to ask you, but let's start with the first things. You are currently at the team house.
Yes, currently in Fort Lauderdale, Florida.
Uh-huh. And what when it comes to just the horizon of time, the next couple of months, is there already any tournaments, any milestones you have your eyes on? Like, could you talk to me a bit about what's on your mind for the next weeks?
Oh, I mean, we're going to Northern Arena. Well, I'm not gonna lie, we've been really taking it kind of slow. Last year, we had a pretty good year, and then we kind of crumbled at TI, and I want to try and make sure that doesn't happen again. And one of the things that's all about is just pacing the year a little better. Last year around this time, we were scrimming like 5-6 days a week. We were trying to make sure we were good, and it was really for just I think like an ESL qualifier and the major, and it was just too much. So we're kind of taking it easy for the next 3-4 months or so, and then we're going to go hard once like the real season hits, because there aren't really many tournaments at the moment. We're going to Northern Arena. That'll be really fun. It's in Montreal, so it's actually like a local kind of LAN. And then obviously the major qualifier, and I think there might be like a couple more tournaments this winter, but like that's pretty much it. So we'll just play some Dota, hang out, trying to work on my tan, standard esports life.
Okay, so what percentage, in terms of competitive, how much are you putting into it right now? What percentage is the team at right now when it comes to preparation?
I mean, individually, everyone just plays a ton of Dota. We're just kind of limiting scrims to like 2 or 3 days a week max.
Ah, okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, the first thing that I did, or one of the main things I did when preparing for this interview was listening to a Hotbit one from TI5. And what I really enjoy about listening to you is that the way that you talk about the thoughts that go on in your mind, especially when it comes to when you describe the things you watch out for in game and so on, it makes it very easy to understand what's going on. So there was one thing you talked about when it came to what you look for in new players, and you talked about this kind of A, the experience, and B, the hunger. You use an example where you said if a dude is TPing somewhere, then you want your new guy to be like, oh, let's go kill him right now, and that decision has to happen immediately, otherwise it's a bad call. So when it comes to your new team right now, how what are you still looking for similar things, and how did the whole selection process go?
Well, I mean, Moo was kind of a no-brainer because he's not the best offlaner. Like, I don't know if I would put him in the top 5, but he did finish second at TI, so that's like he can't be that bad. So I think he's got a lot of potential. He also has a really sick flow, and he's a general just like cool guy to be around. So he was. I think we even had a conversation before TI, and I was like, man, wish we could play together. He's like, I don't know, man. Maybe we'll all suck, and our teams will disband. And we're just kind of like, fucking around like that. But he was like my guy that if I had to pick up a player, it would be him if I could have like a 6-man roster. So when he got kicked, I was like, thanks, Misery, you're the man. It's funny because we were talking about it at the summit, and he disclosed to me that they were considering cutting Moo for Moon, and I was like, all right, well, as your friend, I think that's a terrible fucking idea, and that you're a moron if you do that. And as a Dota player, I think you should 100% cut Moo, because then I can pick him up. And then they ended up cutting him, and I was like, all right, sweet. That was really nice. He thought that Justin was a game winner when we were talking about like who the hell we would want to play with, because the Swedes weren't going to stick around. And he said Justin was a game winner, so I was like, all right, cool. And then I was pretty sold on the whole playing support thing, because I think it's easier to captain from, and that's really what I think is what wins. I think it's more. Let me rephrase. I think that if I'm actually going to win a TI, it'll be because I'm a sick captain, not because I'm a sick player. If that makes sense. Like,
Mm-hmm.
Dota's way more about strategy and having a team all on the same page and understanding what their objectives are and what their win conditions are, etc. So I thought that that was the right move, and I wanted to do it. So then we need a mid player. We actually had a lot more interest than I expected,
Mm-hmm.
partly due to my totally a troll accidental reveal of my plans to pick up cancel. But once that went on Reddit, I actually started getting a ton of mid players like asking about me and the team and wanting to play with us because Moo, really good Dota player. I think Zach's really good, and I'm obviously I kind of suck, but all I have to do now is buy wards, so that's pretty easy.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I like to cancel. When I look for players, I tend to interview them on Skype as like the first thing. I try and do it with as little like text conversation or warning as possible, so I can kind of get a feel for what makes people tick and whether or not they're the kind of people I'd want to not only play with but live with. I'm sure you heard some of that when I was talking with Hotbid at TI5,
Mm-hmm.
and he just had a really good attitude. He's Romanian. I love Romanians and just Eastern Europe in general. They have a really similar they work hard and they're hungrier, I think, than a lot of other regions.
Mm-hmm.
Much like Americans to an extent, because we don't really shine, well, other than EG. Like, who's really got any shine in the scene in the last like 5-6 years? And I just liked him a lot, and he plays really good, and he's got a lot of potential, and I think that we can grow a lot. The only thing that he and Justin really lack is experience.
Okay, well, that's a ton of interesting insight. And when you and Z Freak after TI were like, was there any just obviously you guys conversed about what's going on inside your heads, what you think about the whole situation. Can you share with us a bit just how that entire transition went from TI to like right now, just the kind of key points, most important turning points, and maybe lessons that you learned?
You mean TI5 or TI6?
TI, yeah, the recent one, yeah.
Recent one? I mean, you saying like, what did I learn from the loss?
Yeah, I mean, what I'm trying to get at is that the team split, and Complexity was pretty much known for just being very tight and also placing a lot of value on communicating properly and on all that kind of stuff, which I found very interesting. And now the team fell apart, and Hanskin revealed in the last interview that there wasn't really a lot of talk going on between all of you guys, before or after TI6 ended. So I'm wondering to just get some insight from your side how the whole, the American Brothers side looked during that time period.
I mean, I don't think it was very different from the Swedes. Like, it wasn't that we didn't like hate each other after TI, but when you lose a TI6 and you have high expectations like we did, it's kind of soul crushing.
Mm-hmm.
So, there's a lot of distractions in Seattle. And we kind of all just like went off and tried to cope the best that we could for like that initial week. I personally was not doing so well. But then, there isn't much to talk about. You know what I mean? You're kind of just trying to get through those couple of weeks and pray and just like get ready for the road to TI7, because all year we traveled and we had to play Dota. We were in China twice, Manila twice, Europe like 4 times. We had an exhausting year, and a lot of times you just want to be home and just relaxing or just not playing Dota. And then you're at this big ass event in Seattle, and all you want to do is play Dota, and it's like, what the hell is the point? We can't play anything real for like a month or two now, and there's going to be a new patch. Like, the game, all of our training is essentially worthless, and now all we have to do is watch all these other people perform and win millions of dollars, and we just kind of chill around in our booth and like drink free beer, which was nice. Valve luckily provided open bar every day of the event. I think mostly for the eliminated players, so
Yeah.
kudos to them for that.
Mm-hmm.
But we went home. I actually went. Where the hell did I go? I went to the town. They hung out. I think they like threw a party when I was gone, and when I got back, like a week after we got home, we just kind of had to sit down, discussed. They were gonna go play in Europe. They didn't really like America. I'm obviously, we were gonna stay with Complexity, and just hugged it out, and then hung out for like the next 5-6 days before they left to go back to Europe. Went to Piola for the farewell dinner and shots. It was all right. I mean, again, they're still friends. Like we're gonna hang out. Just losing brings change after a long enough time.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. I think that's a very healthy insight as well for people to hear after the Hansen interview, especially that, hearing these details that you're giving out about how the conversations went and that, it all is still essentially in good spirits. I heard, Hansen said the same things, and it's always reassuring to hear it from both sides in the end. One thing that I did want to follow up on is when you had some quiet moments, if maybe you hadn't had a lot of beer, or you did have a lot of beer and you were just thinking a bit, or you were at the town and you had some quiet moments where you didn't have a lot of people around, could you share a bit, because I know there's a lot of fans that really appreciate your sense of leadership and your drive and passion. So after TI, I think a lot of people would like to hear a bit about just the thoughts that went through your mind. Did you think about was there considerations of giving up? Were there any regrets? What were these thoughts like, if you could share a bit?
Heavy question. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I considered, this is my thing. Like, I don't enjoy. Dota's not always fun. A lot of the time, it's more like work, in truth, because you're not really playing the game for fun. You're playing to. I use it as an example. It's like if you're people want to be video game testers, and they don't realize that that doesn't mean you just play video games all day and write a blog about it. You normally just have to play the opening level like 100 times in different ways to try and find out if your character can glitch through a wall based on your movement. Like it's just kind of grinding, and a lot of times that's what it can sort of feel like. Especially when you have to. There's just so much damn work involved in being a player, and the reward is almost all like commission based. I'll say because if you win, like people love you and they follow your shit, and you win money, and then if you lose, everyone thinks you're an asshole and you suck, and then you have to find a team and you just watch the lands and you don't travel. Like it's kind of all downhill. Once things get going, things get really going, and you're like, fuck yeah, I'm an esports professional. But
yeah.
I would love to commentate, but I don't really feel like I can do that unless I actually win something, because then it's just like, if you win something, it's like, oh, hey, an ex-pro player? Yeah, I mean, he's definitely right about his criticisms. Whereas if you're just like washed up, like who wants to hear this guy speak? He couldn't even win a LAN. The hell do I care about what he thinks about this Dota game? So, well, that would be fun, and just like broing out with Cap, like, or OD or something, like all day, every day would probably be dope. I don't think it's right for me right now. There's really like, at the end of the day, when you're 24, you don't have a college degree, and your last half decade of experience all revolves around your understanding of esports, the game of Dota 2, and how to hold your tequila at a bar late at night. You don't really have many prospects as far as legitimate job offers. So, I mean, worst case scenario, you probably just shoot an email to Twitch and just ask if the purple parachute is available for a pro player that needs to make money and have a job, but I wasn't really feeling that either.
Yeah.
So it was just kind of like, of course, I'm going to play Dota. And that isn't to say that I don't love playing Dota. It's fun. Like, I can't imagine myself ever playing another game. I watch it. Like, it's enjoyable to me. It's just, you start thinking as you get older, like, how valuable is my knowledge of the scaling? Like, does it really matter is it going to matter when I'm 40 that I know what Aghanim Scepter does on like 80 different heroes?
Yes.
Like, is my knowing how many attacks a melee creep can take from a tier 2 tower before I last hit it with 73 damage, is that really relevant in my growth as a person? So those are really questions I asked myself when I was 18, but now that I'm old and technically an adult, I start to just think about like, what the hell am I doing with my life? But I got into this in the first place to travel, and I still get to do that. I've made a lot of good friends around the world that I wouldn't be able to see if it weren't for this career. And I mean, at the end of the day, video games are the shit. I'm trying to be a rock star, so fuck it. Esports life.
Awesome, man. Really appreciate the insight. And so that's a really great answer when it comes to what went on in your mind during the time. And were there any things that happened over the last few weeks or months that are still in your present in your mind a bit, where you think you wish you like, not like if the games could have gone differently or anything like that, but situations where you directly had influence in entirely, anything that happened where you thought, you know, you would have liked it to go differently. Perhaps a teammate, you know, leaving where you thought the reasons, now looking back, are not correct, or are you fine with everything how it is now and how it went?
You mean as far as like how the shuffle went and who's on my team now?
For example, yeah.
What do you mean, for example? Like,
Well, I'm saying for example because that's exactly what I wanted to ask you about, but I
okay.
don't want to make it, you know, for example, Kyle, you know, you can talk
Uh-huh.
about that.
Um, I mean, I don't know. It's hard to say. I think that I was I've moved like 11 times in the past 6 years. I We've had a lot of roster shuffles, obviously, and it was just kind of time for change in a way. It wasn't
Mm.
really like oh, I don't want to play with this person, he's not good. It was more just it didn't work, and it's hard to like, I don't know how to explain. It's like you go through trauma as a unit, okay? You don't want to necessarily be reminded of that every day when you look at each other, because it really is fucking traumatic to
Yeah,
just
sorry,
lose the
yeah,
wild card.
definitely, yeah,
And it just like it's like going to war together and watching your best friends like have their intestines pulled out by fucking raptors. You know, it's just you go home and it's just like holy shit, like that was real life. Like damn, that sucked. And then you just kind of have to go put your head in the sand for a little bit. That's a pretty bad analogy, but my point is, you know, it just sucked. So I think that we're in a better position now. I think that I'll be a better player in my current role, and I think that my team has got a lot of potential, and they're hungry, and the personalities might mesh a little bit better. And I think the Swedes will be a lot happier on a Swedish team,
yeah. Hmm.
speaking Swedish, living in Sweden. So I think it was kind of mutually beneficial. Like you said, still friends. We're gonna hopefully go to Amps together, Amsterdam, and some other festivals sometime this spring.
Hmm.
Um, just life goes on.
Okay, well, thanks a lot. In your past interview, you mentioned you were asked about your captaining style, and you said what's frustrating for you is that before you go into game with the team, you know exactly, and your team knows exactly what, you know, your enemy team is all about, what you got to watch out for, and it's like you're telling your team, all right, guys, here's victory, we got to go there. There's quicksand here, here, and there, so don't fucking go there. And then you play the game, and then like one by one, all of you walk into the quicksand, and you're like, what the fuck's going on? You were losing the game, and that
Hmm.
pisses you off. Um, is This is something, I guess, where every captain needs to learn to deal with in their own way. Has like how do you deal with these frustrations that happen, and has your view on how you deal with this type of stuff changed over the past little while?
Well, it's really been a progressive change. It's one of my favorite words is doublethink. I don't know if you're familiar with it. It just means the act of holding two opposing ideas at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
So what I'm trying to say is I care a lot about winning, and in order to be a more effective captain and teacher and leader, I actually have to care. Essentially, I have to care less. I've realized, and I need to, I don't know what the word would be, but like kind of disconnect myself from the results. So now if we're losing, I just tell myself it's like it's just a game. It doesn't really matter at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm.
It's all about the next one and improving, and that's helped. Um, my bigger issue nowadays is really with just pubs. I don't really have problems like enjoying myself and staying focused even in a losing effort when it's a real game, whether it's scrim or match. But I really can't stand pubs nowadays because they don't. I don't feel like they really make me better, and they're not rewarding. It's not fun when you just can't win a game because it's not necessarily a player's losing on purpose, but he's not trying to win in the correct way, and thus you cannot win because he won't hit the building or something,
Mm-hmm.
and that's harder to deal with. I normally deal with that by just getting the hell off the PC, which is something I would recommend to anyone listening. It's made such a positive impact in my life. If I had a really bad game and I just didn't want to play Dota, you just don't play Dota. Walk away. There's no reason to play that game. And in the event someone's just being a toxic jerk in one of your games, you just mute them without even. You don't say muted. You don't respond. You just mute them, and now they're forever removed from your life, and you just don't have to think about it. It's like really rewarding to do. You don't get as angry.
Mm-hmm. I think this is a place where I would like to take a very quick detour because usually I talk about this at the very end of the interviews, but you talked about something that I think a lot of players would like to hear a professional player talk about, because even though you yourself might not think that people, since you didn't perform, as you would have wanted at TI, I think there's still a shitload of people out there that really like to hear what you think about this type of stuff. And you said something very interesting was, could you talk a bit about the stuff that you see people do in pubs that they're doing, or what should they be doing? Like, what are they? Because I hear other pros saying, pubs, they don't play Dota. It's not Dota what they're doing. Is there like a recurring thing that you keep witnessing where you're saying, oh, guys, don't fight, not this again?
It's mostly just that in pubs, pubs don't understand professional. It's really just like professional information and how important that is. A really unexplained and unexplored area of the game by most commentators is vision and how warding and hero compositions will affect how you play the game. Global mobility plays a role in that as well.
Mm-hmm.
And in pubs, people don't really comprehend, like, hey, I'm a beastmaster. Like, you shouldn't come up here on Morphling and like push out my lane. You should farm the jungle with me or like alongside me in the lane, so that if they were to fight me or you, we would be able to help each other. You're also not showing. You're not saying, hey, look, guys, Morphling and Beastmaster are up here. It's about rune control and prioritizing, thinking about the game not as how much gold do I have individually, but how does my movement and my play affect my teammates and my enemies' gold. It's better, as an example, let's say instead of playing Shadow Fiend and you kind of abandon mid real quick and go farm your own jungle, when in reality you could push the mid lane out into the enemy's tower, take the top rune and go take his jungle, and then maybe rotate top and land a kill. You don't really, it's not difficult for you, but it requires, it's about making positive movement on the map. You want to apply pressure at all times to the enemy's tower, to their jungle, to their heroes, to their stacks, to the runes. And a lot of pub players will just farm, and they'll push the lane, and they'll go farm your own jungle, and they don't think about when you should push and how to push and stopping the enemy versus just like maximizing their own farm. They don't understand timings as well as they need to. When you get Aegis and you're really ahead, you just group up and you take all the towers after you push the lanes out and you win the game. And there's been so many games, specifically in China, where I'm just like, holy shit, guys, we fucking won. Like, PL, you have Diffusal and Heart and Aegis. Like, run into their base, attack the tier 3 tower. If you see an enemy hero, use your spells on them. And it's just like we don't use Aegis, and it's like, holy fucking shit. How, like, oh my, it's actually tilting me right now just thinking about it. Dude, so that's my answer.
A great answer. I'm getting hyped just listening to it, and I'm telling you, there's a percentage of listeners right now that probably just started a search for a game, and they're gonna pick Shadow Fiend and go mid, man. I'm telling you. Good stuff. Thanks. I appreciate it. What was I going to ask? Oh my god. Secret. Was it about Secret itself? No, it was about the fact that you had an issue. You talked about how losing sucks, but especially losing sucks when when your draft is not as good as you would have wanted it to be, because you're not necessarily learning a lot about matchups and stuff, because it's not winnable. And again, this was unfortunately at TI5. There was like just a good interview, and I didn't see a lot of other stuff since then with you on it. So comparing that to like right now, could you talk a bit about, especially in scrims and professional games, how you think about the draft and its value and impact on the outcome of the game in comparison to perhaps TI5? Is it the same? Is it less? Is it more?
Oh, sorry. Could you? What has changed? Sorry.
The draft, your philosophy toward it, and like the impact it has on the result of the game.
It's interesting. I'm trying to make more content, so this is probably like a video I'll make at some point. But drafting all kind of comes down to like a bunch of different variables that you're trying to maximize. Like, you always want your team to have like magical and physical damage. You want burst, disable, sustain. You want to be able to de-push. You would like to have some minions to help in pushing. You want to have a Roche killer, an ancient stack clearer, all of these things that go into your draft. And it's really also like exploiting the enemy's weakness. Like, for some reason everyone's picking OD nowadays. Like, OD is not a hard hero to counter. Like, you cannot first pick OD. It is not good.
Because why? What would happen then if the other guy knows his shit?
I mean, the Wings pocket strat, in my opinion, was like the greatest dismantling of a draft ever, and I was on the losing end of that. It was we had lost to them 2-1 in the like upper bracket of our group, and then we had 2-1, and we should have won that third game, and then we were playing them. This was at ESL Manila, and then we went to game 3 again in that second set because we met in like the upper up-down game.
Yeah.
And we picked a really strong strategy. With OD, Beastmaster, and Marana that we had Dazzle that we had run in the past, and they went Invoker mid, Io Weaver aggressive with Veno Earthshaker bottom, and it was fucking insane. And they just owned us and pushed all their lanes and just dismantled us because OD literally is an auto attack, and if you make him hit like Weaver bugs and Veno wards and Forge spirits and all these shenanigans, he like actually just doesn't do anything. And they just took all our towers, and our OD was like, what does an OD do to Veno wards, you know? And he just got owned, and it was like, holy shit, and they just won all their lanes. Beastmaster doesn't do a damn thing to Venomancer carry either. You're just like, okay, his ward hit my boar, now it'll die to poison in 15 seconds. It's like, all right, cool. That was pretty sick, but I don't know why I went into that. But Dota, I don't know. Drafting is all about having your players comfortable in what they're playing and understanding the win conditions that your draft is headed towards. Understanding the time and the way to win. So a shitty draft in the right team's hands can be phenomenal. A fantastic draft in a team that doesn't understand how to play it will most of the time lose.
Is this one of the things where because you also say that you're still, of course, at the very, very high level, you obviously learn a lot and you try to learn as much as possible, and you compared it to like a puppy or a Kuro, and you said that there's when you go into late game with them, then there's no surprises for these types of players because they've experienced so much, whereas perhaps the probability that some situation comes along where it just requires an experienced player to know the correct decision, it might take you longer, it just put you at like a disadvantage. Is this still a factor for you, or do you think that when it comes to general knowledge of everything, you are way up there?
I'm definitely getting closer to where I want to be, but I think I still have a lot to learn. Dota has so many unique situations that develop after a point. Like, it's kind of nuts. So there's still like games I'll win or lose and be like, damn, that was really interesting. Like, that was cool. I mean, one of my favorite things that I think more people should do more is just fucking when you have like a Rax or two and you're like, oh no, are we gonna Roche? Are they gonna Roche? Are they gonna come kill us? And you just run and just go into the enemy's base and you kill their base and you say, hey guys, how's Roche? Is he cute and fuzzy? And you just hit their buildings and make them play you. I can't stand when the game gets into this like, will you fight me? Won't you fight me? Type breakdown. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And when it comes to things that you personally want to improve about yourself as a player and as a leader, is there, if you had 100% of focus to invest into your skill as a player and then as like an in-game and out-of-game leader, where do you see your priorities? Where do you think is more need for you personally to improve more and faster?
I don't really think I need to improve at all, honestly. I think I'm the best player in the world. I'm kidding, dude. Come on.
I'm just waiting.
You can't have really accepted that.
I'm just waiting. I was just waiting for you to correct yourself.
I think that I have a really hard time with right now it's like heroes. I'm playing support all of a sudden, so I need like 20 more games and all these random ass support heroes. And in general, just I don't know. For me, I kind of have to like play more of my role to really know what I really need to work on, if that makes sense. Because right now it's like I just switched roles. Do you know what I mean? But it's really not like, I don't think there's like a specific aspect. It's just like everything. You just got to get better, like communicate better, have more awareness, better mechanics, don't miss as many last hits, etc. You know?
Oh, interesting. Okay. You mentioned the Manila Major a while ago, and this is one topic that came up when I was speaking with Hanskin in the last interview. And I don't know if this got brought to your attention by anyone, but during the interview, he mentioned that because we're talking about when did the complexity that always tried to improve and such kind of start cracking in his mind a bit, and when did things start to kind of go downhill? And he referred to an incident at the Manila Major that he considered that was pretty influential on the whole thing, but he didn't want to go into detail because he didn't want it misunderstood as being disrespectful or starting anything, because he obviously very respects you a lot and the rest of the whole team. So I figured I want to use the chance while I have you on, if you know what he's referring to, and if you could share with us what he's talking about.
I had a feeling you'd ask about this. I mean, in quick summary, we were playing really good going into the Manila Major. We felt really good about it. We had gotten invited. We had done a lot of training against a lot of the top teams, and we had pretty good results. We thought we were really good. I thought we were really good.
Yep.
And then we kind of played like dog shit against Newbie and lost games that I don't want to. My thing is, I'm fine with being beaten. I really hate losing, and Newbie was like a great team. They finished third at that LAN, but I didn't feel like they beat us, if that makes sense. Like, we just played really badly, made stupid mental mistakes, and like we handed them the game in a lot of ways. So we made certain mistakes, whatever, move on. So then we're going up against Empire. We had we watched a lot of replays, we talked about it, and there was a specific thing that mistake / I don't know, there's something really specific.
Please tell us. People want to know.
It's nothing crazy. Like, we was just like, hey, like, don't do this. Like, make sure we don't do this. Like, let's just play good Dota. Like, let's win the game.
Okay.
And then we ended up playing against Empire, and we straight up, not only did we fuck up exactly what we had discussed not fucking up, but it literally, like, we were just throwing the game. Like, it was a free game that we just threw. And afterwards, I was just like, fucking just like baffled, because it was like, how the fuck, like, how are we this bad? And I essentially like stood up after the game and said something along the lines of, what the fuck was that? How the fuck are we this bad? We should be embarrassed to call ourselves Dota players. What the fuck are we doing? And obviously I said it at a higher volume than that, but and then I kind of just like walked out of the room and took like 5 minutes to cool off, came back in. We were like, obviously there were people who didn't respond very well to that. If I could go back, I feel like I'd probably have a similar response, because for the previous like month or two, I had worked really hard on like just kind of not, just like, being nice. Like, I felt like it was at the point where, because I had even considered like, do I really want to do what I'm about to do when it went down? And I was just thinking to myself, like, we've tried this whole like nice, like, go over replays, like, let's keep things calm. And I'm just like, I was kind of done with that. I was like, the fuck, it's like, obviously it's not working. What the fuck is, like, let's have like a more of a wake up call, so to speak.
Yes.
Because we really were good, and we were just playing, like, we were just doing some retarded shit, and it was just insane to me. It was absolutely insane that we were making these mistakes consistently. And yeah, and like that was pretty much it. Again, like, it kind of is like just cultural differences between like Americans and Swedes, I would imagine, plays a big part in that. Like, I played a lot of sports when I was growing up.
Yep.
I got into fights with my siblings and cousins at times. Like, it's just not like, it just happens, Like, I've had coaches tell me that I was like a fucking disgrace before because you fuck up. Like, that's just life. And
so from your perspective, it was just, you were very angry and you let it out, but this is the way you learned it, and this is the way you just expressed your anger and frustration, not because you hated your teammates, you wanted to make them feel bad, you wanted to wake them up.
I was like, I didn't know what to do. I was just like, we're just fucking playing bad, and we had just had a conversation. Like, okay, it's like, you tell Rodney, your little kid, nicely, like, hey, take your hand, like, don't touch the burning fucking stove, and he burns his hand on the stove, and you take him to the hospital, and you go back home, and you're like, all right, Rodney, stop touching the fucking stove, we don't want to do this again. And then you turn your back for a second, and it's like, he's fucking touching the stove again, and it's just like, what the fuck? Like, what do you do now? You gotta, like, you don't know how to, I don't want to continue with this analogy.
Yeah, okay, and you would have probably preferred it if people would have, if it would not have had the destructive effect that it had, because that obviously wasn't your intention. You just wanted to let off some steam, right?
I wanted to win, and
Yeah.
I didn't know how to win at that time because we had gone over things, we had discussed things, and we were not winning. So it's like if that doesn't work, like what is your next thing to try?
It's interesting because in an interview with another very I guess strong personality type of captain, PPD, he mentioned that he had a very out there confrontative and almost aggressive type of leadership style. And I think it was, if I remember correctly, Artur, had a bit of didn't wasn't able to take it that well, and then PPD tried to change it up a bit and be a bit nicer. And then he mentioned that in the end that they wanted him to get back to that a bit more asshole-ish type of state. Do you see parallels between because obviously someone like you that you think a lot about how do I lead? Do I want to be friends with everybody? Do you want to be nice about it and be like, hey, let's look at this replay, let's try not to do this, and obviously that didn't work. So what do you see any parallels between like yourself and PPD or even Misery and let's talk a bit about just captaining and how to effectively use that passion and even sometimes that frustration to motivate your people.
I mean, I think there's every captain's obviously got a different style of how they want to make things happen.
Yeah.
I personally, I consider myself a human before I'm a Dota player, I guess, if that makes sense. And I mean, even ever since Han, like, ever since like the start of the whole me and PPD rivalry, when I cut him back from a Han team and like 6 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
it was like over a Skype call. Like I called him and we talked about it. When we dropped Ziz or MJW and all of the all these tryouts, like if they were at the house, we would talk to them at the kitchen table, and if they weren't home, we would call them on Skype. Like we don't hide from what we're doing. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think that's been like good in the long term because there's a lot of it makes relationships I think weaker at first, but I think that in the long term it's the right way to go about doing things. So
Mm-hmm.
there's certain relationships that I think are still pretty strong based on how they like ended, so to speak.
Yeah.
Like when we even after all the shit we went through, like we still talked like the three Swedes and or the two Swedes because Chessie was at his girlfriend's, but the two Swedes and then me and Zach and I called Chessie later that night. Like we talked it over, we hugged it out. It's no bad blood. It's just it's kind of business.
And there's respect, I guess.
Yeah, it's just easier that way. Like it sucks. It's like way harder to talk about what's going on. No one wants to have the breakup conversation, but at the end of the day, like that's life. You kind of have to have it. And it makes things better, but
So do you think, I think what I'm trying to get at is I'm wondering if when you got angry and frustrated and you voiced that, I'm wondering if that and how you said it and how it all went down, if that was different from, for example, I guess the talk that Misery talked about in another interview where he said he sat his team down one time and he said, guys, we need to improve, we need to get fucking better, it's not working. And
I've done one of those too, man.
Mm-hmm.
I've done like that's like your first thing is like holy shit, you have a really bad couple matches and scrims in a row. Like you need to kind of sit down as a team and say, look, guys, ours was about like work ethic. I can't remember when we lost, but we lost something. I was like, guys, like we're just not fucking, we're better than this. And that was that's my main gripe about the old Complexity team as a whole is just we were so much better than our performance at like every LAN we played at, specifically from the Manila Major onward. We beat Wings in a fucking BO1 and then lost to Liquid. Like those were both really good teams, and we were like hyped for TI after that because we knew that we were good.
Mm-hmm.
We were beating teams that finished in the top 5 of tournaments. Like we were splitting games series with those teams, and we could perform. We just fucking always just didn't. And it's just sad to me because it'll be no one's gonna give a shit about that iteration of Complexity. But we really could have been something if we had just fucking played when it counted once or twice.
Have you found out yet where the worm came in and why it went sour when it came?
Dota's just hard, man. You win some, you lose some. You make a couple mistakes in the game, you lose the game, and because you lost that game, you're out of the tournament. It just shit happens. I think that there's a really good book, Freakonomics, that had something about this. It was about how it's about trading and how people always go to the traders that like never lost big, when in reality you might be better off with the trader that's lost big once because he knows how to avoid it in the future, and maybe that guy that's never lost really just got lucky. That's sort of like just I guess a parallel to esports where I'm not saying that the teams that win don't deserve it. I'm just saying that if you play the same tournament 100 times, you won't have the same winner very often. That's all.
Okay. All right. Well, one last thing on this topic, and I do want to thank you for the transparency and honesty when it comes to the whole thing. I'm sure the listeners really appreciate it a lot. Looking forward to hear the feedback from the people listening to this as well. And I guess the last thing that I'm wondering about is that when you are in a team where perhaps you have a captain that leads strongly, perhaps there's a spectrum as well where there's maybe a healthy strong and an unhealthy strong. Could the strong leadership lead to situations where you're in game and in high pressure situations, you're already worried about the consequences of what would happen, or like you're worried about making a mistake so badly that it's almost a self-fulfilling prophecy? Like, that's just a thought that went through my mind when I thought about you saying that there was like a few specific things that went wrong. If that could, if you guys have had a lot of talks already.
No, it was like mental mistakes. It was just like not playing good. I don't know how to. I don't want to like go into it that much. It was just it wasn't like it was totally in our control. We had the power to not do the things that we were doing, and we had to just like think it through and stay not just, I don't want to say focused, but just present, aware of what we had to do type shit.
Mm-hmm. All right. Okay, we're gonna phase that topic out. Thanks a bunch. We're gonna go into the last few questions before I let you go, because I've taken up a lot of your time and it's very valuable, and I thank you for it.
No problem.
Thanks. I have the last few questions. The first one begins with, is anything that happened in this scene recently when it comes perhaps to the shuffle or to interviews that happened, any type of content, any memes that came out, anything in the Dota scene in general that happened recently that triggered you, that comes to mind? If not, then we can just go to the next one.
Not that I can think of. Not really. I mean, I don't know. People are just trying to be good at Dota, and so am I. And it's just, life goes on. I think that there's going to be a really interesting few months ahead. I mean, like, I'm just reading now that Magic Johnson's tweeted he's happy to team up and acquire Team Liquid. Like, that's some shit that's going down.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, like, esports life is some good shit right now. So,
any team, all right, any new development, any team that you're especially interested in seeing how they fare, apart, of course, from your own?
Probably, I mean, like, who am I rooting for, or who am I excited to see perform?
Well, if any of these come to mind, then let me know afterwards. But what I thought was that there's a team where you think, oh, I'm not sure, looking at this composition, I don't even know if, they could be really good or they could be really bad. It's going to be interesting to see how they do. Any team like that out there?
That is pretty much every team from Russia, because you never know what to expect from them.
Okay.
What else?
And then what about the team, you just mentioned teams that you had very high hopes for, perhaps?
I think EG is going to be really good. I think
interesting.
and Nubi are going to be good.
Mm-hmm.
I think Liquid's going to be pretty good. Depending on how much Bulba feeds. Shout out to Bulba. I think we're going to probably not suck if we can, just not suck, but I think we're okay.
Yeah.
I like my team a lot. And that's pretty much it. It's hard to say who's going to perform. I'd like to see DC at some lands.
Mm-hmm.
Want to just play them.
Mm-hmm.
And that's pretty much it. Like,
all right, Crit as a captain?
Pretty good, I'd say. I think that EG team is just like loaded with talent. Like, they're just stacked.
So is leadership like the biggest variable there that has the biggest influence on how they do?
Sort of. Yeah, I mean,
or is that maybe the roles if they
I don't know. They're just they're just really good. Like, all their players are top 5 at their role at the very minimum. Like, it's kind of hard for them to be bad. I think the previous problems with our Tor Sumail dual core was like hero synergy, and it was demonstrated like yesterday at MDL, where they just I felt like they didn't play the right heroes. But then, when they're on heroes they both excel at, they kind of just win. So
What about Alliance?
I'm not sure. They lost the game recently in like the way the NIP and Alliance always lost their games. So if they can not do that, they're gonna be really good.
Mm-hmm. Because I didn't see the games, I just saw tweets from Loda asking for a bit of patience. But obviously, when you look at games, you see a lot more than others. What is that? What are the similarities that you're seeing between the lost game yesterday?
They gotta have a killer instinct. They won the game. They have 5 towers down. They're massively ahead. Just go win the game.
Yeah.
Stop split pushing. Stop farming. It's something Fly was talking about back when we were in Complexity together, and he would get so angry when we got into these games where the game's over. Like, we have won. And all we have to do now is like wait for Roche and go high ground. And he would essentially say, "Okay, guys, don't be retarded. Listen to me. We're gonna win the game. Don't be retarded. Stay as 5, get Roche, and then do this." And he would draw a line like at the direction of their base, and it's like it's fucking easy. Like, that's it. And I'm not saying it's that simple, but that's kind of what you have to do sometimes. Like, just don't be retarded. Don't try and make any more plays. You've made the plays. The game's over. You're going to win. Just go make sure you take a team fight where you're not running up a choke into the high ground, and you're going to win the game. Just go. Bye.
Amazing.
And that's, like, that happens. Like, it happens. It takes a while to learn that. But there's more to it, obviously. It's more complicated than that. But that's kind of like a poor man's version of what I would say is, like, the issue.
Yeah.
So you gotta play to win. You can't play to not lose, if that makes sense. And that even goes to like TI. It was something I talked about with Moo. Like, fucking, he felt like Wings and DC. Like, Wings was playing to fucking win, and DC was playing to fucking win. And there were a lot of teams there that were playing not to lose.
Very interesting, man. Very, very interesting. And such an easy interview to do. So let's get into the last one. You talked a bit about pubs that piss you off. They even make you leave the computer be for a while because you're not getting anything out of it. We already talked a lot about publics, but again, the last thing in the interview is always a kind of a public service announcement. So is there any one particular thing that happens recurringly that pisses you off that you would like people to tell about perhaps right now?
Oh, I can't stand people who don't try to win. Like, don't ever give up on a game. And I'm not going to say I haven't been guilty of that at times, but it's like I'm just fucking like disappointed, and no one, like, if no one's going to try to win, like, I'm going to just start running down. Like, that's what I'll actually do, is if it gets to the point where I'm like, all right, we need to just group up and go push, I will say, all right, guys, I'm going to go bottom. I'm going to TP bottom and push the lane. If I die, I'm going to die. I think we should push this lane, so let's do that. And if they don't want to come push with me, I'll end up just dying repeatedly. I don't really give a shit because I'm trying to win the game. You can consider that toxic, but it's just like, at a point, it's just like, come on, like, what are we doing here?
You're forcing a decision, right? I think that's smart. You're forcing a decision, you know?
Sure. Don't give up on the game. Tomato, don't ever drop your fucking items again. You're a professional player now. Shout out to Tomato.
Amazing. Man, this has been Kyle from Complexity, and I'm calling him Kyle. And the last thing I do want to say before I kind of piece you out of here, I really, and that's the thing, the reason why I've been looking forward to interviewing you a lot is because I get the sense you're really serious about what you do, you're very passionate about what you do, and obviously everyone that's in the pro scene is that, but just, you know, who I am as a person, when it comes to me seeing you, how serious you are about it, it comes across like extra strong, so I really respect the shit out of that. I appreciate the fact that you took the time to talk to me. Good luck with your team, and thank you, man.
No problem. Thank you very much, Epi. I mean, I'm just Kyle, man. I'm just like regular old Kyle, like just trying to play some Dota, win some games, travel the world, be respected and loved by my family and friends, and hopefully die at like 120 in my sleep. You know, I just happen to be good enough at a game that for some reason people want to interview me.
Hell yeah, man. Awesome. Guys, that's Kyle. Hey, thank you. I appreciate it, dude. And go show Kyle some love, guys, on Twitter or on all social medias. I'm going to post them in the description down below. Thank you guys for listening. I'll be back hopefully within the next week with epiCHATS number 12. Peace out, guys.